Would I move to Sarasota in 2025, 2026? I think the answer in this one might surprise you. And so if you've watched the channel recently, I did this for Venice, which is where we live. I did this for Englewood. I did this for Northport, and I did this for Welland Park, which is technically like Northport, but that's neither here nor there. And for all of them, my answer was yes. So the question is the answer also going to be yes with Sarasota? Because like I said, the answer might surprise you. Well, let's dig into this because it's nuanced and tricky for years now, but definitely since the COVID boom of, the Gulf Coast of Florida going crazy with building, price appreciation, all that kind of stuff. We've seen Sarasota specifically, all these areas that I've done in these videos, but especially like Welland Park, Venice, Northport, and Sarasota, like huge growth. And so also huge appreciation. And I think one thing that's really stands out with Sarasota is during that COVID boom, we started to see a lot more stuff going on in the downtown Sarasota area with, more high-rise buildings coming in. Lakewood Ranch was already pretty big, but just absolutely exploded. And so and technically Lakewood Ranch is kind of like a Sarasota Bradenton thing. It's a little more Bradenton, but point is it's kind of, adjacent to all of that scene. And so let me start off by saying this. Every time me and Haiti, who's on a lot of the videos on the channel. By the way, we have a real estate team if you're looking to buy or sell a home from Sarasota, down in the Port Charlotte, Englewood areas. That includes Venice, Northport, Welland Park, Lakewood Ranch, all those areas. Get a hold of our team, 941-221-1897. Call or text us at any time. We've helped a lot of people move to these areas, avoid mistakes, get answers to those questions that are sometimes impossible, often impossible to find online, and save you a lot of money. And our biggest goal always is just to make sure you are happy. That's number one. But yeah, when we're taking clients out to, these different homes in all these different cities, or just going out for a date or whatever the case may be, we'll be in Northport and be like, oh, it's so nice and quiet and you get an extra lot and a newer home. That seems really appealing. I kind of want to move there. But then we'll be like, we live in Venice, but we don't live in the downtown. We'll go near the downtown. We're like, oh, it'd be cool to live near the downtown. Actually, maybe we should move there. Or we'll go to Sarasota in their downtown. It's more of a big-ish city feel and be like, oh, it'd be cool to live in this and be able to walk to a lot of stuff. Maybe we should move there. Or we'll go up to the UTC area, kind of near Lakewood Ranch there, and all the shops and the malls and, all the different stuff going on there. And it's like, okay, maybe we should move there. It's just like we can see the pros and cons of living in all these different areas, Englewood included, is another one that we really, really like. And that's part of what we like about this area of Southwest Florida is how you can get so many different vibes and styles of living in a very close area, or just go visit these different areas. And having access to that is awesome. But I think that's kind of one big pro for Sarasota proper. Within actual Sarasota, there's new construction, planned communities. You could do the more big-ish city downtown living feel. There's pockets of Sarasota that have a little bit more of a country feel to it. There's kind of more of that light HOA feel communities throughout. You can get older homes, newer homes. I would say as a whole, a lot of, Sarasota proper, you're looking at a little bit more of the old, and when I say old, I mean by Florida standard old. I'm not saying 40s, 50s. There might be a few homes that old, but for the most part, you're talking 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, stuff around those ages. But, gonna steer a little bit older than maybe say Northport or Welland Park, of course, or Lakewood Ranch, when we're talking Sarasota proper. But I don't know, I mean, for me, maintenance wise and upkeep and maybe doing some, remodeling and things like that, I'm not sure I would like that side of things. But at the same time, I often prefer, depends, but I often prefer older homes just for the character and charm they have. So that's overall a wash. I think I could go either way on that. The idea of new construction is nice, but often, I don't know, I just love the quirk of older homes. So I think overall, not a pro, not a con on that side of things, but I think a pro is the different ways to live. If the HOAs weren't so crazy, living in downtown Sarasota would be a huge thing. But I'm trying to make this realistic, budget included, everything, what would I do? So I know ultimately we probably would never, well, unless we're making crazy money, then yeah, maybe we would go to downtown Sarasota and move there. But as a whole, I would say probably not downtown Sarasota. Now let's talk another big thing for me. Shops, restaurants, amenities, things to do, basketball. I'm a basketball guy. I want to have some courts. I like to have walking trails and things like that. I think all that side of things, especially like the shops and restaurants, Sarasota is amazing, like so good. Tons of great restaurants all throughout the city. If you want to include UTC Mall in that area, you know, into Sarasota, like that just explodes the options for shops and restaurants. But even just like downtown Sarasota or Siesta Key Village, and just going throughout Sarasota down Tamiami for that matter, like there's just so much to pick from. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love a lot of the restaurants and shops in Venice. Some of my favorite anywhere are actually in Englewood, but I mean, Sarasota just blows everything else out of the water just because it's a bigger city. You know, there's just so much more to pick from. So for that side of things, like, huge win for Sarasota. Like, it is the best in the area for that. I think anyone would be crazy to say like, oh yeah, Venice has got better restaurants. I don't know, maybe, I shouldn't say crazy because maybe some of you guys think that. Leave a comment, let me know. I don't know. I'm open to opinions. Make an argument if you think Venice is better or somewhere else in the area. But overall, I think most people would agree. Yeah, I mean, Sarasota, bigger city, bigger area, more people there. There's more big chains and box store stuff. There's more mom and pop. There's some great, you know, almost all of like downtown Sarasota, like a lot of that is mom and pop stuff with just really, really good food. I would be a pretty happy guy on that side of things because I like to eat. And I love to try different food. I like to try unique things, and obviously good food. You know, quality and uniqueness are like huge for me. And then the vibe is also a huge win, but like the quality and especially unique, I just like to try different stuff. And Sarasota excels in that. Okay, next let's talk beach. Because, you know, that's a big thing with being on the Gulf Coast. Siesta Key Beach, obviously, amazing beach. I'm not as gaga over it as most people I know, though. Haiti, my wife, favorite beach, period. When we have friends and family come into town, if we take them to a few different beaches, most people, Siesta Key is their favorite. And I see the appeal, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't like Siesta Key. Powdered sugar sand, fine to the touch, cool on a really hot day. That's a huge win. Very gradual drop off. You can't say that about a lot of the beaches in the Englewood and Venice area. A lot of them will have like a quick drop off. It's not so quick that you're gonna go head underwater, but it'll put you waist height really, really quick. Whereas there, it's like a real nice gradual walk in, great for kids, you know? And so I see the appeal of it, and it's just huge. It's just a huge swath of sand, huge parking lot. But the parking lot does get pretty full, even sometimes in the summers, definitely in the winters. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that for a lot of beaches in the Gulf Coast area, but it's not as bad in Venice and especially in Englewood. It's more like spring break that you really got to worry about finding a parking spot. But I would be, don't get me wrong, this isn't me saying, well, Siesta Key isn't good enough for me. That's not me saying, I'm not saying that, no. I'm just saying, like, for as busy as it gets, and I like about Venice that I can look for prehistoric shark's teeth and seashells. You're not gonna get that in Siesta Key, because I'm like, you can tell I do a lot of walk and talks, right? I like to keep moving, I like to have an activity. And just like being in the water, after a while, I'm just like, okay, I need like something to do. And that's what I like about the beaches here. I like being able to like sift and look for some shark's teeth and stuff like that. I don't know. I just feel like I'm being productive or something. I don't know. It's like, it's not even about like I'm trying to collect them to sell them or anything. I gotta have something to do. So maybe that's just me. But that being said, like Siesta Key is awesome. I would be happy with it. I would still have pretty close access to the beaches here. And then on top of that, Siesta Key Village being really nearby, I really, really do love Siesta Key Village. And that's the other huge upside, I think, with Sarasota is you're not just getting downtown Sarasota, you're getting Siesta Key Village, you're getting St. Armand Circle, which is another awesome downtown. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Venice's downtown, just a little bit different vibe. Having access to all that, plus big box store shopping and all that kind of stuff, great beach, world famous beach, you know, to a lot of people would be the #1 beach. All that, A-okay, feeling good about that. I obviously know that they have the Legacy Trail, because I'm on it. And this connects from Venice to Sarasota. So for my walk and talk videos and trail wise, I know I'm covered with that. However, haven't spent a lot of time because a lot of times, you know, living in Venice, I don't want to drive really, really far to do these walk and talks to a trail. So I haven't really explored a lot of what they have to offer in Sarasota for trails. If you do live in Sarasota or have spent time in Sarasota and checked out some other trails besides Legacy, leave me a comment and let me know. But I think that would be a nice thing to have as another upside. That being said, I don't think I would feel like it's as essential living in maybe like a Northport or something like that, because I feel like there's other more walkable areas like downtowns and things like that. You know, downtown Sarasota, could walk there for hours and there's just so many streets to explore. So for me, like I feel like I would be covered on that side of things. I'm just as happy doing a nature walk as I am a city walk personally. Okay, but then one of the biggest things when we're talking about moving to Sarasota is obviously got to be like the price point. What is the market looking like right now and all that kind of stuff in 2025, 2026. And this is where, you know, like I said, the answer might surprise you because all the other videos I said, yes. With Sarasota, I'm gonna say it's a maybe. However, months of supply, basically what the metric does is it looks at if no more homes came on the market, so what the inventory is right now, and if nothing else came on the market, based on how fast homes are selling right now, how long would it take for all the homes to get sold? So generally 3 to 5-ish months is kind of looked at as a balanced-ish market. Overall, I would say if you're getting closer to 3 or below though, maybe even like 3.5, it's a little bit more towards a seller's market, meaning, you know, prices are gonna tend to go up. And if you're sitting around 5, 6 months or above, it's more of a buyer's market and more deals to be had. Well, it's been really, really wild over the last year, but like a lot of like Englewood and Northport, we saw a few months where it really shot up, like 10, 11 months in some of these areas, like crazy. But over the last couple months, we've seen it in some of these areas dip down to 3, meaning seller's market. Now, that's not necessarily reflected in what we've seen happening with prices. However, we have, you know, seen less inventory out there. We have seen a little bit less for people to pick from when we're taking them out to look at properties and things like that. Sarasota is a little bit different. Sarasota has a higher price point than a lot of these areas for starters. So that's why I kind of makes me a maybe in this area. On top of that, the months of supply is a little bit higher. So you might be saying, well, Jesse, that means you could go in and get a deal probably, right? Yeah, but you can in all these areas, but the prices have come down a little bit more. And with the inventory, or the months of supply, I should say, being at a lower point right now, it makes me think that maybe in a lot of these other areas, prices might start going back up or leveling off. Not sure, I don't have a crystal ball. There's so much to put into that with the economy. Who knows where that's gonna go over the next couple of years. You know, interest, who knows for that matter as well with that. So, you know, all those are factors that are gonna dramatically change, you know, what the outlook is. But I can tell you this, the price point is higher in Sarasota, and the months of supply for the most part in most of the different pockets has sat a little higher than some of these other areas like in Englewood, Northport, things like that. And so that makes me think that there's maybe some more room to come down. And unless we're including Lakewood Ranch in this, because a lot of it, you know, is Bradenton and Dresses, the biggest upside to a lot of this area, like North Venice or Welland Park or something like that, is that there's a lot of new construction. Now, obviously with Lakewood Ranch, there's also new construction there. That's why I say unless we're including Lakewood Ranch. And there's less of that in Sarasota proper. And so for me, if I were to do a move to Sarasota right now, I would want to go the new construction option. So I would consider Lakewood Ranch for that, or, you know, there's a few other areas in Sarasota where there is some new construction, especially like in a lot of these like planned communities where more of the big nationwide builders are building. Like that's where a lot of the great incentives are. Some of the smaller builders actually have some pretty good incentives now as well. But I would like the idea of being in a new construction home and being able to take advantage of some of those deals that are out there as far as the incentives with buying down interest rates and all the other stuff that's out there right now. And so if I were to do a move to Sarasota, I think I would go that route, or of course somewhere in Lakewood Ranch, you know, in one of the new construction communities there. And I would be a-okay, happy with, you know, the price, not having worried about any major issues for quite a few years, you know, as far as the roof, water heaters, you know, air conditioner, stuff like that, and then still getting access to a lot of those things I love. That being said, it would depend for me, and again, it has nothing to do with Sarasota, the city, because I love Sarasota. I love Sarasota, you know, but it would depend on the pocket of the city, the house, what's the condition of it, what's the price. I would have to put a little more thought into it than some of the other cities that I've done these videos for on the channel recently. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would move to Sarasota in 2025, 2026, but I would be a little more, maybe not hesitant, but selective, you know, on which kinds of properties I would consider moving into. And I would like to give you like this is the one thing I would look for, or this. It's a mixed bag because it depends on the home. Again, because a lot of the homes in Sarasota are going to be, I would say 2000s or older. So it would depend on the condition of the home. Does it need a lot of updating? What's the price? You know, all those factors have to kind of go into a pot. What's the location? You know, what are the upsides and downsides of that? You know, is it maybe worth doing a little extra work on the home because it's in such a great location? You know, like all of those things are things I would have to put into consideration. And so long story short, it would depend on the home. And if, you know, maybe like if it's in a new construction community, then we're talking also location to some degree, which is different than my answer for all these other cities I've been doing these videos for recently, which all those was like pretty much, yeah, you know? But for a lot of them, it was kind of a similar scenario, you know, new construction, possibly an older home depending on the location. The difference is there's a little bit more new construction in these areas than with a lot of Sarasota. Not to say there's none out there, but it's just less common, unless we're including Lakewood Ranch in that conversation. But leave me a comment, let me know, what do you think? Would you move to Sarasota? And as always, if you want to move anywhere from Sarasota down to the Port Charlotte, Englewood areas, Venice, Northport, Welland Park, etc., call or text our team anytime, 941-221-1897. We helped a lot of people move to the areas, avoid mistakes, get answers to questions that are often impossible to find online, and save a lot of money. And as always, our #1 goal, buying or selling, is we want you to be happy. That's the biggest thing. If you want to know more about the pros and cons of Sarasota, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching and live breezy.